Welcome to All About Art. My name is Alexandra, and I'm an art historian, curator, and writer. Within this podcast, topics relating to art history, cultural policy, the art sector, as well as a large range of other art-related topics will be covered. Conducting critical discussions, having entertaining exchanges, or just enjoying some relaxing chats, All About Art is where you'll find it all. Join me in exploring and developing cultural discourse. Welcome, everybody, to an episode of All About Art where I was lucky enough to sit down with Stephanie Misa and Paula Marschalek for an interview. Stephanie is an interdisciplinary artist who grew up in the Philippines and the USA and is currently living in Vienna. Paula is an Austrian art manager with her own company, Marschalek Art Management, and is based in Vienna, but she's also professionally active on an international level. The reason why I am interviewing them together is because they worked on a project with one another called MAGA Meets Marie, which is an exhibition currently on at Gallery Gundula Gruber in Vienna. Stay tuned to hear me ask both of them about their professional practice within the arts, about their opinion on American politics, their stance on collaboration in the arts, and a bunch of other things. I really hope you enjoy, and if you want to get in touch with either of them, I'm going to leave their social media and their websites in the description. Anyway, let's get going. And I guess we're just going to dive right in with the first question, and it is directed at you, Steph. As an artist, tell me about your artistic practice and a little bit about your background.
Okay, so I graduated from the Academy of Fine Arts here in Vienna in 2012 with Monica Bonvicini. So it was sculpture and installation and performance in a way. But I gravitated more towards the sculptural installation side. Before that, I had a background in media studies, media arts, basically. So 3D was a bit new for me. And thinking about installations in terms of rooms and space was also a bit of a challenge, but I definitely gravitated towards that. And now I usually, as you say, I'm more interdisciplinary. I use different medias as much as I can. There's usually film, there's print, there's definitely sculpture present, and different other forms. Recently, well, not so recently, actually, in 2017, I started my PhD in Helsinki, and it's a doctorate in fine arts, and I'm doing artistic research. Because a lot of my practice, I realized, was also very concept-based, and I tended to do a lot of research before I actually developed work. So the forms from my work usually came out of very geeky, nerdy reading and a lot of researching and a lot of background studies. And so it naturally lent itself to artistic research, which I'm a bit new to. So I'm kind of stepping into academia as well with my artistic work. And that has been challenging and exciting, but I can feel that it's putting a whole other dimension to my artistic practice.
That sounds really exciting. When did you know that you wanted to do this? Was there a defining moment when you were younger where you said, oh, I want to go into art, I want to be an artist?
Not really. I've always enjoyed the arts. I've always gravitated to painting and drawing. Like I was always the kid in class who would be drawing a lot. And yeah, of course, like I went through like childhood painting classes and all this and that. But I never really thought of being an artist as a career, or as sort of a lifelong practice. So that's how I ended up in kind of media arts or new media, because I thought to be able to enter sort of a field that I knew would develop a skill that I could use in terms of economically paying for rent.
Yeah.
Um,
Always the struggle for artists, isn't it?
Exactly. It wasn't until I moved to Vienna and started studying in the Academy of Fine Arts where I felt myself thinking that I could actually do this full time. And I have to say, because I did most of my growing up in the Philippines and in the US. So it was only really in Vienna where I felt there was a structure that was supportive enough of the arts that I could actually go into it without having to think about my survival too much. And that did prompt a very significant change in mindset where I was like, yeah, there's actually a possibility here. I could actually live off my art. But it wasn't until I was a self-employed artist after school and I literally had to write down in my what's it called, insurance, that I was an artist, a working artist, that kind of hit home that yes, this was my job.
Yeah. I find that incredibly interesting because I am researching that a little bit for just in general for my studies. I find things like that really interesting, and the aspect of, I guess, government support and like government financial support of the arts, how that has an impact on the arts and cultural sector in different countries, I think is so interesting to talk about. I mean, my research that I've done, which is very minimal in the scope of my master's degree, has been on museums up until now, but I am kind of looking into, how does it affect a singular artist as well? And so I think that that's really, really interesting that after you've lived in the Philippines and the US, how when you're in Austria, you say, okay, the infrastructure and the way that it's done here has given you a bit more of security in being able to practice art full time, or for the most part, as much as you can. And when it comes to your artistic practice and your professional practice and everything, what is your view on collaboration in the arts? Have you ever struggled with this? Or has there been someone that you especially admire or have had a lot of fun with that you've collaborated with?
I mean, I think that's a really interesting question because even though I produce work as a solo artist, I feel like a lot of the way I work is actually in collaboration. There's a myth about like the artist's genius, as if like they can exist by themselves when actually you're existing in a network and exchanging a lot of ideas with a lot of colleagues. So I think it's a natural way to work where there's always this exchange and this support. So some of those collaborations have manifested into artworks. Like I recently worked with Multiple Spirits, which is a zine with Mika Maruyama and Mai Endo and another US Filipino-American, US-American, Filipino-American artist, James Clark. And this collaboration was in the form of a video called The Diamond Princess is Forever. There are times where a lot of my collaborations manifest in different ways, and it doesn't usually just come out in an artwork. It also can come out in events. Like I'm also very active in kind of women's networks and feminist organizations. So yeah, a lot of activist activity is really in kind of this shared labor, because there's no way one person can do everything by themselves. So there really has to be an acknowledgement of the shared labor. And I think that's also a really anti-capitalist stance to take, where you're really saying, it's in the sharing that we're able to do this. So yeah. So yes, collaboration plays a huge role.
I love every single thing that you said, because I think about this so much, and like the shared labor that I also take part in and that I also benefit off of because of me learning from other people and learning from my environment and everything around me, and me being able to pick and choose what my surroundings are to a certain extent. These things have really informed my professional practice, my writing, And as you say, it's kind of also, yes, this aspect of this anti-capitalist idea that is threaded through what we do. And I love that. I really do.
I mean, I think you can also see the kind of trend in the arts towards like leaning into collectives more. Like you have Ruang Grupa doing the documenta. Like there's also kind of, in a sense, this realization that no single artist works alone, or it gets more interesting and complex when you're working with groups versus individuals, no?
Yeah.
Because I think the art scene also has this tendency to glorify this individualism and you know,
yes.
Be it like claiming to be a curator, claiming to be a solo artist, or this very intense solo claims.
Definitely. But individualism does go hand in hand with capitalism in every way. I mean, we could go on and on about it. And these are extremely interesting theories that really impact the way that we do things. And I love to hear that you are also really thinking about these things and very interested in it. But going off of my previous question about collaboration, you collaborated with Paula Marschalek to exhibit your latest works in the show MAGA Meets Marie. And that is an exhibition at Gallery Gundula Gruber. And it critically explores political movements and events. Before we talk more about that specific exhibition, though, I do just want to ask Paula a little bit more about her work, a bit more about her background, and what falls within the scope of her professional practice. So Paula, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I think I will start with an introduction of my background and then tell you a little bit more about the work I do with Marschalek Art Management. My name is Paula Marschalek. I'm an Austrian art historian, cultural manager, and founder of Marschalek Art Management. I've studied art history at the University of Vienna and continued my education at the University of Applied Arts, where I obtained my master's in arts and cultural management. I've worked with renowned art institutions like the Dorotheum and the Kunsthistorisches Museum, and also have gained experience at the art market as a communication manager for the Gallery Rudolf Leeb. From September 2019 till March 2020, I held a cultural management scholarship at the MAGA Center in Los Angeles. And I was really happy that I could do it before COVID. Also in terms of collaborations and network and so on. I'm also a freelance writer and I curate shows and moderate as well. And last year was especially exciting for me because I also co-founded 2 associations within the arts. First, C20 with you, Alex. It's an association for international curatorial practice. And then I also co-founded JOMO, Joy of Missing Out, with my colleagues Julia Bugram and Christian Batzand-Hegemark. And JOMO is a dialogue and networking format. The theme is what defines the art world, but often remains unmentioned. So we tackle the art world and everything which comes with it, but is not really seen. And I now will tell you a little bit more about the work I do with Marschalek Art Management. It developed from a project which I founded 2018 and developed very organically into a communication agency, which I officially founded last November. It was a very exciting year for me. And with Marschalek Art Management, I focus on creative, new and versatile ways to connect people to contemporary art, artists and other projects within the creative sector. And I offer classical PR methods such as press mailings and media corporations. And as social media has revolutionized the way the art world does the internet, a major part of my work is also social media communication and developing strategies for Instagram. I also offer organizational consulting and webinars related to art world topics, project management, and also assistance concerning crowdfunding campaigns. So actually I wear many hats and actually I take care of everything that has to do with the organizational and communication part of art projects and cultural projects as well.
Yeah. I mean, within the scope of C20, which is not something that we're going to be talking about too much here because, you know, that's not the subject of it, but I have already learned so much about, you know, Austrian cultural management and like what is needed and how you go about things from the way that you do things, Paula. And also with social media. I mean, you've given me a lot of advice with social media. And just how to go about it and talking about things, and it's always been really, really great to see you work and to also learn from you and learn with you. And within all of these things that you do and all the different hats that you wear, how did the collaboration look between you and Steph for MAGA Meets Marie?
So Steph approached me in summer last year. And she approached me with the upcoming exhibition and wanted to do a collaboration concerning the communication part of the exhibition. And as I really love your work, Steph, I was certainly happy about your message and also was really happy to develop a strategy for the exhibition. I, for my part, provided organizational structures to take care of the structure of the press release, the mailings to the press, to the media, also social media postings, and like inviting people. We had together the idea to do the artist tours on Wednesdays, so we can show people really and deeper connection and also like information about the show. And fortunately the show will be extended until May 1st, so we have few artists left, and that's amazing because we're now in lockdown in Vienna, and I think that's really great that we have this option.
Awesome Thank you for telling us about that. And within that scope, Paula also asked me to write a little bit about the exhibition. And that was also, you know, part of what Paula does and part of the whole process of kind of getting people to think about things and getting the art out there. And I think that that's really amazing. But now that we've covered how exactly this exhibition came to be on the organizational side of things, Steph, would you mind telling me about the works and the concept of the show, which obviously I know a lot about because of what I wrote, and I love it. But yeah, would you like to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, no, I have to say, like, I have to give so much credit to Paula first before I answer that question, because like of her, I really had the space to think about this show. Like I have, like when the gallery approached me to do the solo exhibit, it was a fairly new gallery, and I really didn't know much about it. And the gallerist, though she was really quite excited and energetic, I think was also new to the scene. So everyone was just quite new. And there was a little bit of an insecurity as to how we were going to go about this. And Paula really brought like this stability in terms of how we could go about getting this underway. So I credit her a lot for giving me the space to actually also do the production for it. So thank you. If I haven't said that, but I think you know how grateful I am.
Yeah, I know it, and I'm really grateful that you came to me.
So MAGA Meets Marie, this was a January thing. I've been completely obsessed with American politics for a long time now, ever since Trump took presidency 4 years ago. And so I've followed it. I'm personally invested as someone who can vote in the US and whose family also lived in the US and whose brother kind of used to work for he worked for a branch of the government called the National Atmospheric Oceanographic Association. I might be butchering the name because he's a marine biologist. It's called NOAA. Everybody just knows it as NOAA. And basically, they're the organization that monitors global warming and, of course, oceans, because they're based in Hawaii. And one of Trump's first acts as president, of course, was to cut down funding for anything that had to do with the environment. And so I felt personally slighted by this, because it did affect our family a great deal. Well, my brother, in that sense. Who then decided to move his entire family from Hawaii back to the Philippines. Aside from my general obsession with politics, I was really taken aback by how identitarian movements and right-wing fascist movements were growing really strongly under Trump. So this I was kind of monitoring and following, especially during the elections when things were starting to go really, what's a word for it, where it was getting extreme.
Yeah.
Like you could already see the narrative of fake news that he started even from the beginning of his presidency. And that just completely escalated. And then there were all these claims to like the election being stolen from him. And you could, I mean, to be quite frank, I followed his Twitter feed, and it was just kind of in a way to keep an eye on him and to see what he was up to. So I really, really took offense to how he was stoking his base with all of these like really ridiculous outright claims of it was I who won the election, and the Democrats took that away from me, and I don't know how they rigged it. They rigged Georgia, they did this, they did that, which of course then logically leads to the Capitol riots on January 6th. So lo and behold, when this happens, like I have no idea why anyone is surprised. I definitely was not. Anybody following the news should have known this was coming. Mm-hmm. There were very clear signals and signs that organization in terms of intimidation and rage and wanting to reclaim what was stolen was there. So come on, But anyway, that instigated the artwork. And the act that actually instigated it was more or less finding out that within this Capitol riot, aside from all the absurd costumes that were being worn and the crazy selfies that were being taken inside, and the violence, of course, that happened, where there were actually a lot of people of color participating in it. So that was the shock to me. The biggest shock was actually finding a picture of a Filipino person within the scene, who was distinctly Filipino because of the broom he was carrying. So that, long story short, because I'm realizing I'm now telling a very long story.
That's okay.
That got me to thinking about what it meant to be a person of color who was working against your own interest for the sake of ideology, and what it means to buy into this ideology of whiteness or this ideology of racism in a way where you think you as a person of color can escape this discrimination by buying into the same kind of thinking or structures that actually uphold white privilege. So yeah, that basically was the thought process behind MAGA Meets Marie. It was then taking a look at two very different revolutions. Of course, Marie here refers to the storming of the Bastille and Marie Antoinette, very Austrian. Very interestingly close to the gallery because we're in Hietzing, so Schönbrunn is actually not that far away. It's kind of these links to former Austrian Empire and figures. But anyway, it was taking kind of the seed of the French Revolution and how we take that as kind of the democratic beginnings of people looking at each other as equals, as brothers, as, fellow people, and how that act actually was to take away a sovereign structure, to be able to maintain equality for everyone, and how the Capitol riots was actually quite the reverse of that, where it was a taking back of the privilege and reinstating a king.
Yeah.
And in this case, it was Trump. So the democratic ideals that we're looking at hundreds of years later have really kind of managed to twist themselves in a very ugly way. So thinking about that also led me to a theorist, a sociologist called Cristina Beltrán, who basically voices all that I just said in a very convoluted way into a very succinct phrase. She calls it multicultural racism. Multicultural whiteness, I'm sorry. And it's basically, that people don't identify as their ethnicity or their color or their race or their class anymore, but they buy into the ideology of whiteness. And in that ideology, everyone's white or has white privilege. So it's not a race thing. It becomes an ideology.
I've been obviously, because as a white woman, I have absolutely no personal insight into what that is like in a day-to-day situation. For me, it's just what I can learn from other people and how I can better myself and start to relearn and rethink things. And this is definitely something that I've heard about before. And it's this adapting as a sort of protection. Am I understanding that correctly to a certain extent? Like adapting to whiteness or adapting to the ideology of whiteness in order to fit into what people are pushing as being the status quo?
Yes and no, I guess. I can see it, sort of as a camouflage technique. Like if you're a person of color who's, let's say, in a state and in a small town that's very, very much leaning towards Trumpism and is very, very far right and white, you may, buy into the ideology. I really can't explain it. I think it's both too, because it's like, how can you embody the hate though? Like, let's say you do take to the ideology and you do consider all of the, immigrants are bad, let's say, or, it still kind of goes against the very grain of sort of you yourself coming from an immigrant background. To be able to cast hate onto a people because of something that you carry yourself, I feel is very unexplainable. And I think it takes a very different type of leap in rationality other than just growing up in a certain place and trying to fit in to create that logical kind of,
illogical flip, isn't it?
More illogical flip. How can you really defend that? I don't understand it, but to some people it makes sense. And I think that's a good thing about having sociologists like Cristina Beltrán who study this and can actually explain it in better words than all I see and all I react to is the affect. It's what I see on the news. She has actually studied the kind of the voting patterns of the Latino community in the US and can can give us more insight into this. Like I'm merely a political pundit who's giving my opinion on like what I think the state of the Republican Party is at the moment.
Well, I mean, most of us are when we express our feelings and thoughts on politics. But, you know, I wish that half of the people who would be expressing those opinions would be as informed and as read up on different things as you are, considering the different variables and learning from people who have actually studied it. And I'll definitely be looking into, what was her name again? Cristina Beltrán.
Yeah, she's a professor at NYU, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Thank you so much for going in such detail about it and for talking about these really difficult themes. I definitely can understand to a certain extent with the way that Trump is, especially with his misogyny and the comments that he's made, and honestly, the struggles with having family in the United States, with me being born there, with me having ties there, and also with me being able to vote there. It completely resonated with me when, you know, looking at your works, but also when you say, you know, okay, this is what really made me obsess about it. And for me, it was the same thing, that whole entire week, a week-long election. And I was sitting there and I was getting notifications on my phone from the New York Times. And I just was so anxious. And it was so difficult. The Vienna terrorist attack happened that week, in the same exact week. And for me, it was just, I mean, I wasn't in either place. I was in London. But it was just such an emotional situation. And I was so unbelievably angry. And I was angry at the fact that a man like that could have even come into office. I was angry that after everything that women have had to go through, and obviously, as I say, I don't think that I have the right to make any comments, obviously on behalf of people of color, because I am a white woman, but I can say I think my opinion on how he has treated women. And I'm very happy to have you on to also give other perspectives on this, because he, as a leader, has been so discriminatory and inappropriate. And I am so disappointed that a lot of people find what he says okay. And I guess maybe the reason why I was trying to get a better understanding of this effect that you were talking about when it comes to developing this hatred that goes against the grain of who you are, I was thinking about that, or I guess attempting to understand that in terms that I can understand it in from personal experience. And so I was kind of thinking about that in the sense of, okay, womanhood and being female, because it's also something that Trump has been very aggressive towards, or very, very, not good towards. And I was thinking about how often women put down other women for being who they are or how they are. Slut shaming women, telling them that it's not okay, telling them, I don't even want to go into it. We all know what women have to go through. And so I guess that's why I was thinking about these things, but obviously it's not the same. And I am looking forward to reading more into what you suggested in order to gain a better understanding of it as well. But Trump and his tweets and his egging on, I mean, I cannot believe that he was not impeached. I could just, I'll shut up now. But I just feel like your artworks and your exhibition and this whole entire concept has really hit home. I resonate with it, and it has also taught me something. And I think that that is something that I really appreciate about this show and about the concepts and everything that you've kind of conducted around this. And I can only sing your highest praises with it. But now that I'm gonna stop talking about it, in my opinion, because we don't need all of my opinion. So thank you for giving me the space to say that as well. And I'm gonna move on a little bit away from politics, and I'm going to ask both of you, maybe because Steph and I have been talking quite a bit. Paula, let's go with you first. But how has COVID had an effect on the exhibition? Like from your end, from the organizational side of things, from how you've had to deal? And also, how has COVID had an effect on your professional life in the arts so far? Because it's been a year.
The fact on the exhibition is that we are now in lockdown, actually in the 4th lockdown in Vienna, and the exhibition is closed until I think April 11, because the lockdown has this duration. And then we're happy to open again. But yeah, that's the massive effect. My personal or professional life has also been affected by COVID. Yeah, because everything is back to, or not back to, but actually switching to the digital life. And on the one hand, it's really great because you can work and develop a workflow with the digital, with Zoom, and also there were lots of digital exhibitions as well. But on the other hand, it's also really hard because private life and the professional life in the cultural sector, it's not really separated from each other. And with COVID, it got a whole new dimension in my kind of view. And yeah, I'm hoping to get back to the museums as soon as possible, back to do the artist tours with you, Steph, and hopefully we will live with COVID and kind of adapt to other normality.
Yeah, it's been really hard to get people to go out and see art nowadays, huh? Like, I think there's just been this whole kind of, nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows what's open. Nobody knows how to deal with it. If you're supposed to wear a mask, if you're supposed to take a test, et cetera, et cetera. And all this uncertainty just makes people want to not go, I think. And yeah, so in that sense, like, we've been living with this for a whole year, and the safest medium has been online. And so physical art has definitely taken a hit, I think. Yeah.
I completely agree. I miss seeing art in person so much. I mean, I do see art in person. Like, I went to one exhibition opening this week, but it's not the same, of course not, because I can't go into the gallery and speak to my friends and bounce ideas off of each other and talk about things. And I guess it is really difficult, because then on an organizational side of things, like, okay, you're planning exhibitions, but you don't know if you're going to even be able to open them or, have them at all. And so you kind of, now after a year of doing twice as much work, because you open an exhibition and then you have to close it and then you have to reopen it, and the stuff that's going on, you kind of almost feel demotivated to even like organize something in person. Like, at least that's how I feel with some gallery work and events that I've been taking part in, like in London. But that was actually my very last question. So I guess all I can really say from here now is thank you so much to both of you for coming and talking to me and getting really deep and really personal as well. Thank you, Steph, for telling me, or telling everyone about your background and this exhibition and these personal things as well. And thank you so much, Paula, for giving us a really, really great insight into your job and your professional sphere, which is something that I think a lot of people don't know as much about, because you and I have very similar professional tasks and things that we do. And I think that was really, really great. And so thank you both so much.
And that is it for today on All About Art. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a rating or a review, as it helps more people discover the show. Also, feel free to share with your friends, or if you share on social media, tag me and get in touch. Thank you so much for listening.